You weren't going to pour today?
No, we were looking at the skies, and luckily I live close by, and I noticed that the skies cleared up, but an hour ago looking on the...
It was pouring. Yeah, I rode my bike here. It sucked. But
luckily it was just right there. It was the only spot that...
Why can't we pour in the rain?
Well, it'll disintegrate the surface of the concrete and make a little bit sandy surface.
Sort of craters of the moon kind of thing?
Yeah, but also...
Little pits, yeah.
There won't be any cement left because it'll be diluted on the top.
Oh, I see. Now we have had gorgeous weather for what? The entire summer? It just rained this whole weekend. So are you worried about having water in the pit there?
I haven't looked at it this morning, but...
There's a few puddles, but not much. We can pour right over that.
I think it'll dilute out. It's pretty minimal.
Okay, cool. So we're set to go, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Right now we're pouring the slab for the crawl space in this house. And it's fairly typical concrete work. First they're going to pump the concrete in from a truck using this huge hose. And then they float it with these giant paddles on poles, push it until it's roughly level. And then right now it's kind of soupy, but as it starts to cure and set up, people will be able to step on it, and then they'll get on there with trowels and start working with the trowels and making it smoother. You'll notice everyone's wearing boots. Concrete's very caustic to human skin. It's alkaline, which is the opposite of acidic, and it burns if you get it on you. So everyone's very careful to not get it on their skin. What is this rig you've got here?
It's a 42-meter concrete pump.
Okay, so it takes the concrete from the truck
and places it on the ground.
Now, how long have you been doing this?
About 6 years.
Oh, cool. And you do a different site each day, I assume?
Yep, pretty much every day is different.
So is this a good access site or not so good?
It's okay. As you can see, I short-rigged my rear outriggers because I wasn't able to get them out all the way.
I mean, I guess you've been on worse ones?
Oh yeah, way worse.
Like what?
Well, as far as steep grade goes or ground conditions,
okay.
This one's okay.
You hook up to the truck directly? It's kind of like a fire pumper or something like that? Fire hose?
No, the concrete truck backs in. I have a hopper back there, and he fills it up. Okay. And then I pump the concrete through.
Okay.
All the way through the end of the whip.
And then who's at the end there?
Normally the concrete finishers.
Okay. So you're just hitting here making sure that they got enough stuff coming through.
Exactly.
The cullet is made from 100% recycled glass, which comes from the city's recycling program. The bottles and jars that we all throw out in our curbside bins, some of it ended up underneath this house. Not only is it a good use of a waste material, but it saves a hillside from being blasted for gravel. And at $8 a ton for the cullet versus $17 a ton for the gravel, it saves the homeowner money as well. What I'm standing on is a rebar, which is the steel rods that are going to be embedded in the concrete to give it some tensile strength. And then the concrete goes in on top of a plastic sheet called a vapor retarder because we're actually trying to, even though it's fairly wet today, once the concrete's all dry, we want the crawl space to stay nice and warm. And we want to keep all of the moisture that's in the earth underneath of us on the other side of the vapor retarder. Concrete work is fairly typical. One other thing we did is that the foundation walls here, they're only 6 inches thick. Most concrete foundation walls are done at 8 inches, but we really only needed 6 inches for the strength that we needed. And that way we saved about 25% of the materials, we saved on cost, we save on the energy used to make the materials and bring them all here. So it's just another way we're trying to save and optimize this house and make it as efficient as we possibly can. At the edge of the concrete, we need to have a little bit of a gap between the slab and the wall. We're using something called an expansion joint material, but this is 100% recycled newspaper. It's just a little bit different. The rebar that I'm standing on, the steel, is actually made out of 96% recycled steel. So instead of mining ores, we're just using industrial waste. So and there's also recycled content in the concrete. So a lot of what you're seeing, as well as the glass that's underneath of us, is recycled content. We're using as much waste material as we can to build this new house. The mix we're using for this slab, like all the concrete used, is called a high fly ash concrete mix. Its only real downside is that it's a little bit stickier to work with. It makes sort of a creamier cement. So later on, I'd like to talk to the guys who've been working it and see if it's been any issue for them. This is the only real slab we're going to pour where they're going to have to worry about that. But it doesn't quite work in the same way that regular concrete does. It's a little stickier. I guess it'd be like, you know, when you're doing peanut butter, if you get to the bottom of the jar, the stuff is sort of harder to spread and it doesn't go on the sandwich quite as easily. And this is more like the creamier stuff at the top. How did this stuff work? Because it's a high fly ash mix. Have you messed with that before?
We have fly ash in quite a few of our mixes anymore. It seems that the grinds of cement that are being used are so fine that it just takes off. It tends to flash. The mud is much hotter than it used to be.
Okay. So is this flashing fast, or
no?
It's a nice cool day. What about when I pointed out that there was no smoking on the job site? What happened then? It's your job to enforce that, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be my job.
Okay. But how does that work?
You play with you look around and use your judgment on knowing them and knowing that it's not really that important to push an issue of that sort at the wrong time. Or
so you can't just walk in and say, get that hell out of here?
Yeah, you can't play rules guy, because this is an old trade that hasn't changed in many years, and I don't think smoking has, you know, when we get to a danger situation where the owner could lose their house, we could lose our business.
Right.
Yeah, we're going to enforce it, but this is outdoors in a cement pit.
Kind of pointless, right?
Yeah.
These guys get like a 10-minute break at 10 o'clock and a half-hour break at lunch, and you know, is it like that, or?
They are on setup, but on 4 days, it's not fun.
You just
make sure you have your breakfast.
The concrete drives everything, right?
Yep.
The concrete drives the schedule. If it's ready to go, it's ready to go, and there's no messing around.
And they want it down. They want it finished, and then, you know, be done with it. Then I know the union. If you pour some concrete 1 minute after 12, you get paid 8 hours, just because of the roughness of this job. So unions are great in that way of looking after the fellow workers, and all the benefits other than that too are great.
On a pour like this, is there expectation someone might get hurt, or not so much? I mean, we're not up high in the air, we're down on the ground, right? But there's a lot of people running around.
Well, I've been hit by that pole right in the side of my head one time, and that definitely hurt.
The bull float?
Yep.
Yeah.
Going back and forth 12 feet or something like that, so you got to be 12 feet clear or have your eyes open, which I didn't at one point, and got hit pretty good.
Can I still see the scar?
I got other scars from other construction instances, but not that one.
It's a beautiful day. It's a great day to pour.
Okay.
Made me nervous though, because it was raining when I left my house, and
so you almost called it off?
I was vacillating.
Okay. And but now I guess you're glad we lucked out, right?
I went on AccuWeather this morning, and it showed partly sunny all day.
So if you don't pour, what happens? You just sit, you lose a day of work?
Oh no, we have plenty to do. We do form work and we do grading, and so if it's a bad idea to pour, that's the beauty of residential concrete as opposed to commercial. If I decide, hey, you know, this is really too risky, then we just go do something else. Whereas with commercial, you're just being driven.
Come right behind you. Dad, there you want to go.
You know, when you're doing peanut butter, if you get to the bottom of the jar.
I got other scars from other
Okay.
construction instances.
I short rigged my rear outriggers because I wasn't able to get them out all the way.
Made me nervous though because it was raining when I left my house.